Good morning, everyone. For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. Cuban President Raul Castro praises U.S. steps to improve bilateral relations between the U.S. and Cuba. At the same time, though, he has called on U.S. President Barack Obama to use his executive powers to fully lift the 5-decade economic blockade on the island. Obama says that he will open discussions in the Republican-dominated Congress about fully dismantling the embargo. The step towards normalization of relations between the two countries includes opening an embassy in Havana. It comes after more than half a century of aggressive isolation tactics from the U.S. As part of the deal, the 3 remaining members of the Cuban Five were returned to Cuba after serving 16 years in U.S. jails. President Castro received the 3 Cuban heroes, and Cuban state television showed footage of the 3 exchanging hugs with the president, relatives, friends, and government officials. Castro became Cuba's president in 2008, taking over from former leader and his brother, Fidel Castro.
Good afternoon.
President Obama also announced substantial policy changes with Cuba on Wednesday, marking a new era in U.S.-Cuba relations. Obama acknowledging that previous foreign policy strategies towards Cuba had failed. He says that the U.S. isolationist policies toward Cuba yielded no results, adding that a new approach is required. He also adds that the outdated policies have isolated the U.S. from regional and international partners.
And begin a new chapter among the nations of the Americas.
Latin American leaders have welcomed Obama's decision to restart diplomatic relations with Cuba. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro described the decision as a moral victory for the region. The left-wing leaders in the region lined up to offer their support for the move. Venezuela and other Latin American nations have long demanded the U.S. end its embargo on Cuba. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says he will travel to Cuba at some point in the future. The Assistant Secretary of State for the Western Hemisphere, Robert Jacobson, will also travel to the Caribbean nation in January for talks. No sitting U.S. president has traveled to Cuba since Calvin Coolidge in 1928. Meanwhile, U.S. House Speaker John Boehner led Republicans in harshly criticizing President Obama's policy change toward Cuba. Some Democratic Party leaders also joined in with the criticisms. And moving on, we go to Colombia, where several Colombian political social leaders have welcomed a unilateral ceasefire agreement called by the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. They have urged the government to follow suit. The leftist FARC rebels announced a conditional unilateral ceasefire to begin on December 20th. They warned the government that they would immediately call off the truce if they come under attack by military forces. Leaders from Merco member countries met in Argentina on Wednesday, signing 5 joint declarations. The documents issued support for the Argentine government's ongoing legal battle with the U.S. vulture funds. Also, in a separate statement, the leaders from the Mercosur economic bloc denounced the continued U.S. aggression against Venezuela. The summit came to an end on Wednesday. Now to Mexico, where the federal government continues receiving criticisms over its response to the crisis brought about by the case of the 43 missing Ayotzinapa students. Federal electoral authorities are in the state of Guerrero in response to a meeting between families of students and the Senate. They are analyzing the situation in the state to determine whether next year's election should be canceled. Parents of the missing students have insisted that the federal government cancel the elections following the disappearances.
que están actuando con el crimen organizado.
Some German lawmakers have offered their opinion on the Mexican crisis, calling it disastrous. Today, German opposition legislators will present their parliament with 3 motions designed to suspend negotiations of a security agreement with Mexico. They also want to force the German government to adopt a more critical stance following the disappearance of the 43 Ayotzinapa students. A report drafted by the German Green Party says the Mexican case is not isolated, but instead the tip of the iceberg, illustrating the critical situation in Mexico. Finally, we go to Syria, where our correspondent Naswan Abdullah has an update on the country's ongoing civil war.
Syria has been the cradle of many ancient civilizations and religions, which have had a broad influence on other world cultures and peoples. Syrian people are a mixture of different religions and different ways of worship.
I'm a Muslim and I have lived here for 50 years with our Christian brothers. We were and we are still one big family.
The past 3.5 years have seen savage attacks on Syria, which aim to break a great civilization full of knowledge, art, and humanity.
Solomon says, this is a time for war and time for peace. Enough! And now, no war, but peace, peace in the highest, peace in the earth, peace in all hearts of the people.
The special envoy of Rome, Father Mario Zenari, celebrated with the Syrian people to show that the Church stands with the Syrian people against extremism.
All of Syrian denominations gathered here tonight to prove to the whole of the world that they are like this tree, stood still, full of hope and full of the light of peace. Naswan Abdullah, Telesur, Damascus, Syria.
Thanks to Nashwa. More on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. Hope you have a great Thursday.